Thank you very much for joining me on this Zoom presentation. I can see that the number of participants is still growing rapidly. So I think what I'll do is just wait just a few more minutes before I get started. I think it's actually one of the largest Zooms we've had on this subject, which is wonderful to see. It's really quite an exciting time in the vineyards. If you're anywhere near a winery, or our winery, you will know that we're very busy harvesting, and Mother Nature has been very kind to us so far, but in the weather reports, it shows that there's rain clouds coming. And so we're all very busy out in the vineyards, removing fruit and getting it into the winery. So here you see our estate vineyard and the winery that some of the people who are actually on this call have been involved with from the beginning. So I want to thank all of the shareholders who joined with me 40 years ago, and then in the intervening time periods in really pursuing a dream, and that was to build a world-class winery in Oregon and to tell the Oregon story about what we can do here and do it responsibly, to do it as stewards of the land, as well as our communities. The stock offering, it's gotten just started. We opened it up just to our owners initially, and we now have over $2.2 million of this small share offering purchased. It's a $3.53 million offering. I want to thank Katie Gill, who is the head of our administration as well as our ownership services. She's been a remarkable support to our shareholders, and that's the person you'd reach out to for support. The other thing that's really remarkable, she and her staff report to me that of the 2.2 million shares already purchased in this offering, 92% of them have chosen the wine credit as opposed to the cash dividend. And of course, that's what we're looking for. We're looking for wine enthusiasts who want to get the benefit from their winery by supporting the production and the wines that are produced by the winery, and convert their cash dividend to a wine credit. And they receive a 15% greater value in doing that. And so it's wonderful to see. This is the highest percentage we've ever had. 92% of those purchasing shares choosing the wine credit. I also wanted to point out another person that's helped put this presentation together, and that is Sarah McMahon. Sarah works on the marketing team, and she helped me put a lot of these together, along with other members of her team. And she took a picture that I want all of you to hopefully stay on this call to see. And that's coming at the end of this presentation. It's a picture of our head winemaker, Terry Colton, savoring a bottle of our sparkling wine to celebrate the pick at the Bernau Estate Vineyard in the Dundee Hills. Now here we all are. This is at our new winery, our sparkling winery in the Dundee Hills, Domaine Willamette. This picture was taken in the celebration, the annual owners celebration, annual meeting weekend. And this is actually our 40th anniversary that we were toasting to with 40th anniversary wine glasses to a drone. But this is the gorgeous biodynamic gardens that are adjacent to our biodynamically farmed vineyards. I just wanted to make sure I thank my wife for working 6 years. Jan Bernau worked for 6 years as the leader of this project, designing, planning, building this gorgeous world-class facility. In fact, wine enthusiasts recently called it out as one of the 8 must-see winery experiences in Oregon. One of the questions I received was the question about, why are you offering this price at $485 as opposed to being a higher price that we did in our previous offering? And the reason for that is that the SEC, when they authorized this Series A preferred stock back when it first began, authorized a fixed dividend, a 22 cents a share dividend, and that's fixed. So the only way we can make adjustments to what the Fed does to interest rates is we can't change the dividend. The only thing we can change is the price, which produces the yield for the investor. So that's the reason behind it. Now we're looking for shareholders. That's why that are wine enthusiasts. That's what we set the minimum at 300 shares. So it's something that's really should be fairly achievable by most wine enthusiasts. And then we put a cap on it. There's a maximum of 5,000 shares. And the purpose for that is we don't want any one particular entity or person holding too many of these preferred shares, because we want them broadly held by wine enthusiasts. Now, some people have asked, well, Jim, the trading price on the NASDAQ is different than your offering price. And yes, that's true. I mean, people had bought, shares, some time ago, let's say for $4.15 a share. They may sell those shares for $4.75 a share, and then make 60 cents a share on the difference, along with the benefit that they received while owning those shares. So they've actually come out quite well, but they're selling the shares below our offering price. But that happens every day. It's in very small amounts, and that trading volume that's on the NASDAQ is not reflective of the value of the company. It's just the trading price in that day of a small number of shares. But the advantage that we have to investors is that we're a small business, but we still provide investors a path to liquidity. We have we're a publicly held company with its shares listed on the NASDAQ, which is actually, for our size, very rare. But that also gives us another advantage, and that is because we're NASDAQ listed, we have the ability to offer our shares throughout the United States without having to go through the regulatory burden of registering and qualifying in each state in which the shares are offered. That allows us to go find wine enthusiasts all over the country to support our brands. I wanted to also let you know that we're going to have this end of September, September 29th and the 30th and October 1st weekend, we're going to be celebrating Domaine Willamette's first anniversary. And we have a sparkling duet flight and pairing, along with foraged mushrooms, Dungeness crab, and Dungeness crab risotto. This has been prepared, or is going to be prepared by executive chef DJ McIntyre, who's been with us for a number of years, and his protege Zach Clark, who is the winery chef at Domaine Willamette. So you're definitely going to have to take in, if you can, please take in that weekend, and also register in advance. Make sure that they know you're an owner. Now, this slide gives you an idea of why we're doing the things we're doing. This, if you look carefully, you can see on the left, this is covers a 20-year span of time. So on the left, you can see that direct-to-consumer sales were really a small percentage of the total sales that wineries were selling in the United States. And the wine that they sold to distributors through wholesale was the lion's share of their production. And so there wasn't that many wineries. There were a lot of distributors, and there were a lot of stores and restaurants in which to sell the wine. Over that 20-year time period, things have dramatically changed. And part of that has to do with just natural economic forces of consolidation, where very large restaurant groups and very large retailers have consolidated those who sell at retail wine. And then distributors have also consolidated, purchasing small distributorships or actually outcompeting them because of their size. And so the number of distributors has shrunk, as well as the number of retailers and restaurateurs have shrunk. And then during this time period of the span of 20 years, you can see a lot more wineries have been built and established, but you can see how those bottles are grouped together. That's because now wineries are consolidating into groups. And if you look at this pie chart, you can see that over this progression of 20 years, wineries have gone for a fairly small percentage of selling wine directly to consumers to now, in many cases, 50% or greater that they're selling directly to consumers. So that means the wine market's changed significantly, and that means successful wineries who want to both survive and thrive also need to change. Now here you can see what the winery has done just since 2010. So look at that, just 12 years. We went from selling 50% of our wine direct to consumers out of our tasting room and through various means. And look what's happened. It's risen just in 12 years to now in 2023. Direct to consumer retail sales revenues for our company is now 50% of our revenues. So we're really in a different business now. We've gone from being just a producer, a grower of grapes and a producer of wine, to now a company that offers a series of wine and winery experiences. Here's the total number of shareholders we have now, over 26,000 owners. We have, so I think it's, here's the number. We have 11,326 club members as well. So we are spread all over the country. And this is one of the great advantages Willamette Valley Vineyards has. We're really the only winery of its kind that is organized this way and supported by brand loyalists in this way. This is kind of a heat map that shows you the Pacific Northwest, where you can see our owners and where our club members live. So you can see quite a large number of them live within an hour's drive of the winery in our various locations in the Willamette Valley. There's a bunch up in Seattle area. And you can see a pretty good sized group there in Bend, Oregon. If you go all the way up, you can also see over in Walla Walla, where we have a group of club members and owners as well. But this gives you an idea about why we're expanding in the way we are. So here we are now. We have we have 9 locations and where our owners and club members can be served. And we're going to open our 10th in Bend, our tasting room restaurant in Bend, in December. So that's just how far we've come over these 43 years that I've been involved in this, and then the 40 years as a vineyard and winery. There we are from the top of the valley at Tualatin Estate Tasting Room. There's Domaine Willamette in the Dundee Hills. There's McMinnville Tasting Room in downtown McMinnville, the Estate Tasting Room up in the Salem Hills. And then you can see our tasting room and restaurant locations in the valley, one of them in Washington on the Columbia River, and another one in Washington in the city of Walla Walla. And then we have one down in the Sacramento area, Folsom Wine Works in the historic district of Folsom. Now, this is an architect's rendering of what that Bend tasting room will look like. And we just had a sneak peek for our owners and club members that live in the Bend area. 250 people showed up last weekend for a sneak peek and just a little taste of wine. So it gives you an idea, just the level of interest. We're going to be holding a hard hat tour. So make sure you know about this hard hat tour that's going to be occurring in October. We're all going to gather at the Tower Theater across the street because this location will be under construction. It will be a hard hat tour, but we'll have a place at the Tower Theater we can gather right across the street. So make sure you get that on your calendar if you can. I'm sure you've seen quite a bit of communication about it. You know, one of the things that people talk to me about, they say, well, Jim, talk to me about the advantages you have in these tasting rooms and restaurants. Now, one of the advantages, as you know, is that we make the wine, we grow the grapes and make the wine. And so we have a margin, a significant margin when we sell the wine directly to a consumer. In fact, it's over 75% gross margin. And the advantage we have is that we deliver this wine directly to our facilities. Now, a restaurateur has to buy their wine from a distributor because of their license. And so they buy a wine from the distributor, they're going to be paying a higher price because the distributor earns a margin on that wine for selling it to them and delivering it to them. And then the restaurateur then marks it up. And so one of the advantages we have is people get to buy the wine at tasting room prices in these locations, in these tasting room and restaurants, whereas normally in another restaurant, they'd have be facing a significant markup. The other advantage we have, very few kind of casual fine dining locations actually have membership or ownership parts of their business model, whereas we do. So we have a fascinating set of advantages in how we're growing our business. Now here is, this is the pictures that were just taken. There's Kara Daring, you know, she is the estate tasting room manager here at the estate. And because we've been growing so rapidly, she is really excellent She asked for and was promoted into the position of general manager for our Ben Tasteroom and Restaurant. And then there's Sean Bradshaw there in the next kind of slide there. She's the project manager for the build out, working for Carissa Cook, who is the director of development. There you can see both of them smiling. You can see there's still a lot of work to do. So if you come in October, you're going to see a lot more work done. And I encourage you to do that if you can. You know, I don't know if you know this now, but, you know, it was really something when I just started the business. And I remember hiring my very first employee. And I needed my very first administrative employee was Corey Cross. And of course, Bill Cross, as you know, both of them are founders of the company. And Bill Cross is still very active in representing our company as our governmental affairs representative. But Corey was our very first administrative employee. And she worked out of my single wide trailer that I lived in at the top of the hill here at the vineyard. Now, just take a look at this slide. This slide covers the period only from 2010 to 2022. So look at the sales direct to consumer that our company has done. So back in 2010, only about $240,000 of wine was purchased by our owners. Last year, they purchased over $6 million worth of wine. Look how small the wine club was back then. Wine club was like $580,000 in annual purchases. Now it's over $4 million. And look what we sold to the general public. We sold $1.8 million of wine back in 2010 to the general public. And look at what we're selling now to the general public. Almost 5.7 million for a total of almost $16 million in just that frame of time. Why? It's because of our owners. Because they're out there making the word of mouth recommendations. They're out there supporting the wine. They're out there telling the story about the great things that are happening amongst Oregon winemakers and vineyards. Now, here's another slide that Sarah put together. Sarah and Alex Mangan put together in the marketing team. So these pie charts are sized according to the revenue. So look at this. 2020, 2021, 2022. Wow. Just in those 3 years, these pie charts are sized according to the revenue. 3.3 million, 4.2 million, and then 6.25 million. And this is just our owners purchasing wine from us. Just our owners. So as you can see, this business strategy is quite unique. Now, this really gets into kind of the numbers behind why the strategy works so well. You know, I've had bankers come to me and they've tried to lend us money, and we do borrow money. We have a couple lenders we deal with for our credit line, Umpqua Bank, which is now Columbia, and we also work with the farm credit. It's now called I think Ag West. They're consolidated and grown as well. But they come and they say, well, we'd like to loan you more money. And I say, well, how much wine will you buy? Because our investors, the ones who capitalize our business, buy a lot of wine. And here's the benefit that the company receives, that they receive as owners. So there's the over $6 million worth of spend in 2022. You deduct the cost of goods, the cost of growing the grapes and making the wine and putting it in a bottle and putting a label and cork and a foil on it. And then you deduct the sales commissions of the ambassadors in selling the wine. You deduct the dividend check you provide to people who choose to take a cash dividend. And that's the contribution still remaining in the business to operate the business. Yeah, I don't think you'll find another business like this anywhere. Now, this is another thing I wanted to show you because sometimes these things are overlooked. This chart shows you the advantage of capitalizing by selling preferred stock and to people who buy the product, and borrowing money from a bank and then paying that money back. So on the left-hand side, if you start in this year, let's say you do a 15-year note with a bank. So this is a 15-year scale, and it's approximately around $9 million. Now, the capital raise is a little bit more than what you need to borrow from a bank, because borrowing from the bank is a little more efficient than actually selling stock. Initially, it's more efficient, but over the long term, it's not. So you can see that the cash flow that comes to the company as a comparative forms of financing is unbelievable. The difference in raising $9 million approximately from preferred shareholders to fund your growth, as opposed to borrowing nearly $9 million from a bank, these are the cash flows over that 15 million years, because you got to pay the bank back plus the bank's interest. The difference between these two vectors is over $16 million. That advantage falls to Willamette Valley Vineyards and the owners of Willamette Valley Vineyards. Now, here are the brands that our owners own, and they're quite valuable. Some of these brands, as you know, are quite valuable. If you took, what brands are worth, and you see how wine brands are purchased by very large entities, you can take that math, apply it times our number of cases sold, and you can just do the math easily yourself. And you can Google those numbers online. So these are the brands that our owners own, and you can see they're connected to various vineyards and vineyard stories that we're telling. But I wanted to draw your attention to this, because I did get a question about this, and that is, well, what are the assets that are underlying this business? Because as a preferred shareholder, it's preferred stock. You're preferred. In other words, your position relative to the company's assets are ahead of common ownership, common stock ownership. So that's why it's called preferred. And here are some of the assets that you own. Now look at this. Of our own vineyards, we own 704 acres of those owned vineyards. And in our leased vineyards, you can see that some of those leased vineyards, we have the right to purchase those vineyards. We have an option to purchase. In fact, the Elton Vineyard, Craig Smith, one of our board members, and Betty O'Brien who's the owner of Elton Vineyard, has successfully negotiated a purchase agreement where all the terms are now known that we could choose to exercise in the future. So that just gives you an idea. One of the things that a lot of people don't know is in public companies, we follow a principle called generally accepted accounting principles or practices. And what that means is when you buy a piece of land and you put it on your books, on your balance sheet, that is put at the price you paid for it. So your balance sheet does not reflect the appreciated value of those assets. When you build a building and you depreciate that building over a period of 30 years, or you buy tanks and depreciate the tanks, the stainless steel equipment, over a period of 15 to 20 years, that means that book value declines relative to the depreciation. Of course, land doesn't depreciate, but the vineyards do, and the improvements on the vineyards. So the point I'm making is that the value of the company is far greater than what you'd see on your balance sheet. Keep in mind that when I first started here and bought this land in 1982, I paid $2,500 an acre. Well, it's worth quite a bit more than that. In fact, here you can see from Farm Credit Services, the analysis they did on trend lines in the value of vineyards. And you can see by location how the average acreage value. We own land, for example, in the Ribbon Ridge AVA, which we're eventually going to plant. As you know, we own land in the Dundee Hills, and we own land in the Eola Amity Hills, and as well as the Willamette Valley AVA. So you can see those values are considerably greater now than they were back when we started. Now, this is just to show you what has happened financially since we started the company and started selling wine. So we started selling wine, in 1990. So you can see here what's happened in the business over that time frame from 1990 to 2022. And you can see that our net sales have grown considerably over the years. Retained earnings and gross profit has also grown considerably over the years. In fact, over this time period, we've retained a maximum of $25 million in retained earnings. That's after paying a horrendous corporate, federal corporate and state income tax. And then you see this bubble here. that's in this. This is when we ran a wholesale company called Bacchus Fine Wines. And we actually got out of that business because we wanted to concentrate on planting vineyards and making wine and telling the Oregon wine story. So we got out of the complex part of being a distributor. And as you can see by this chart, we really didn't make a lot of money doing it anyway. So it was probably a pretty good idea. We sold our distribution rights to, at the time, Young's Market. So it turned out to be a really good deal for our company and for our owners. You'll see over here a little sign that shows the fire. That's that smoke event that we got in the Willamette Valley. It's just a good way of keeping in mind that this is an agricultural enterprise and there are agricultural risks. In fact, that's probably one of the greatest risks we face as owners of a winery and a vineyard operation is our agricultural risks. And fortunately, we were lucky, and we had some damage relative to the overall cost but it wasn't we were able to figure out a way to overcome those challenges. We had a real serious production management issue in 2021. That gets to Terry Colton's story about him returning to the company, which I'll get to in just a little bit. But we owe Terry Colton a lot, along with some of our former winemakers who came to help us deal with a real serious production management problem in 2020-21. So that this is not a risk-free investment, and so it's important for you to think about and read the prospectus and the materials and understand the level of investment you're making relative to the risk there is in this business. Now, here's another chart that shows you over that same period of time, the growth in assets. For example, we have like $90 million in assets. Look at the growth of shareholder equity in the company. It's amazing. And there's our retained earnings. And what the thing that you get to see here is you can see how little long-term debt we have, how little leverage there is in the company relative to the assets we own. So that's why that's important to know as a preferred shareholder is, of course, you stand behind those debtors, you stand in front of the common stockholders. Now, here's one of our fairly recent purchases. This is our Jory Claim Vineyard. And you can see this vineyard from the deck of our estate winery. And we're now planting Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And this is part of the original Jory family land claims, the homestead claims that were done back in the mid 1840s when Oregon was first settled. Pretty cool history. And as you know, the Jory family their name was taken and used to name a soil type that's very prominent in the Salem Hills and other parts of the Willamette Valley. It's ancient volcanic basalt. It's perfect for growing vinifera wine grapes and actually hazelnuts and a number of other crops. There's a picture of it. So you can see the estate winery in the far up left, and you can see the plantings, the new plantings at Jory Claim. Now, this picture is the Dayton property. This is the property we own. It's just a little smaller than 40 acres, a little under 40 acres in size. That bright yellow line is where we're planting it right now. Eventually, we'll plant about 20 acres of this parcel. It's about 38 some acres in size, I think. And we're going to leave land there so we can build our expansion winery, because, we're pretty much at the seams here at the estate. And fortunately, I've got a very clever production team that has recently figured out how to get more capacity out of our present footprint. Now, there's another picture. So you can see the Stoller Vineyard is over on the right. So this is just across the road from the Stoller Vineyard and Winery. And then you can see Highway 99 right there on the other edge of the property. Now, there's Terry Colton. Terry Colton, came from California and worked with me as my cellar master back in 1997. And he was very successful as a cellar master. In fact, so successful, he got an offer from Josh Jensen. For those of you who know a lot about Pinot Noir, Josh Jensen is regarded as the father of American Pinot Noir. Josh Jensen started Calera Winery south of San Francisco, 2,200 feet in elevation, where he could get that cool growing conditions for his Pinot Noir. He studied in 1970 and made wine at the Domaine Romanecante vineyard in Burgundy. And so here's what Terry Colton is planting. He's planting the Calera clone. This is a clone shrouded in mystery, because this clone was entered into the United States without going through the federal process, because there was no federal process at the time. And but it still was mysterious in how it came into the United States. Eventually, it has been named a heritage clone by UC Davis, and they have propagated it from a micro-shoot propagation technique that makes sure there's no viruses or diseases in these plants. But what's really cool about this is that Terry Colton has returned to the winery after 25 years to lead our winery again and improve our production management. So I'm very grateful to him to come back as a returning employee 25 years later. He's doing an amazing job. He came in and he really helped us rescue our 2021 vintage. And then his 2022 vintage is his first under his supervision. And then 2023, this vintage will be his second now, once returning as the leadership of our production of winemaking. This just gives you a little bit of an idea about the other part of our business, and that is selling our wine through wholesale to retailers. The scan data is our participating chains, store chains. They participate in this scan data collection, and you can see where we rank, and our products rank relative to other Oregon producers. So it's been really something to be able to end up being, leading the market in our price points around the country. And you can also see some of our certifications. We'll be able to, for the Bernau Estate Vineyard, be applying the Demeter biodynamic certification soon. Now, for those of you who wanted to know about, well, what about, I've seen a lot about retail. Tell us about selling wine through wholesale. So here you go. This is just from 2014 to 2022. Just look at that climb. Now, in 2022 vintage, we made 220,000 cases of production because we had to. In other words, we were shorting our customers. So you can see how it's leveled off there. And then for this vintage likely will be around 240,000. But one of the things I wanted to point out about, Jim, why are you selling preferred stock? Well, wineries consume cash. And the reason why they do is because they build long-term assets, long-term valuable assets that you have to invest a lot in. And those assets get more valuable over time, by and large. And then the other part of it, and the biggest piece of it, is you have to build inventory. And then the inventory build, you have to repeat and build every year after that. So you can see the difference just between 2014 and 2022. There is what, over 60-some thousand cases that we had to add to the inventory base of our winery. That means you've got cash that funds that never leaves. It's always there in your inventory. And so if you're going to grow your business, cash is king. And the great thing is our shareholders have approved preferred stock. We initially had 10 million shares authorized by the shareholders. The common stock shareholders approved another 90 million in preferred. So we have, if the market's right and it makes sense financially and we want to continue growing, we have at the present price, offering prices that we're selling the stock at, about $500 million in capital authorized for us to raise to implement our business plan. So we got a lot of blue ocean in front of us. Now, this is a picture I was telling you about. This is Sarah's picture that she took. There's Terry savoring a bottle of our Domaine Willamette Brut, and there's all the our employees there in the vineyards looking on. And as you can see, the wine glasses in their hands, ready to taste this wine and to celebrate the first pick of this vintage season. There's probably a lot that I didn't share with you. that I should have, but at least gives you an idea. We've been on the call now for 35 minutes. And in my presentation, I really did attempt to answer the questions that were raised in the email. If you have more questions, don't hesitate to email us. If you really have a strong interest in becoming an owner of Willamette Valley Vineyards, I really encourage you to do it now. As you know, the price is set to go up on October 1st, and we did lower it because of what the Fed did to interest rates, so that it would be more attractive. And we offered it first to our owners, so the owners could then decide if they wanted to acquire more at that lower price, to be fair to them. So that's what I have for you. As owners, as you know, you get the most favorable discount. So despite the fact you earn a dividend that you can convert into a wine credit, you also get these benefits. And one of them is 25% off of any bottle of wine you buy directly from the company. And so that's a big benefit. You also have a number of other benefits that you receive as owners. But I think the thing that I know all of our owners really take pride in is in, first of all, having an inside look and inside knowledge of what's going on in the Oregon wine industry, because they get that through their ownership communications. But they also are part of a dream, and a dream that's really coming true. When I first started, and we went and called on accounts around the country, they were puzzled when we brought them a Pinot Noir that we grew in the Willamette Valley. Most people didn't even know that the Pinot Noir was being grown and made in Oregon. And now look at us. Now look what's happened in that short time frame. Oregon has literally taken its place among the finest wine growing regions in the world. And now people are learning about the Rogue Valley, the Umpqua Valley, and what Spanish varieties can do in the Umpqua. And they're learning about the Walla Walla and what Bordeaux varieties can do there, and in a very unique place in the Rocks district of Milton-Freewater, what Rhone varieties can do. And as you know, you own the brand Maison Bleu, with the vineyard there so named, on the corner of Highway 11 and the Sunnyside Road, that is the road that enters the Rocks district of Milton-Freewater, AVA. A small AVA, but one that's regarded as one of the most promising in the world. And we have an ability, we're working with the city of Milton-Freewater and are planning a tasting room, restaurant, and lodging facilities. But that's, of course, after we get this work done and make successful what we've already got outlined and have already initiated in our business plan. So we're always looking ahead. We'd love for you to join us in this remarkable journey. You'll really have a lot of fun. You'll learn a lot, and you'll be a part of something that will be a legacy for you, your family, if you choose to pass the shares on, which we have. We have grandchildren now holding our shares from when I first offered the common stock back in 1989. And they proudly come to the winery and see what their grandparents did. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to have so many of you on this Zoom today.